Welcome to Faith Wonders, where real stories of faith and miracles come alive from around the world.
They had everything, or at least that's what the world believed. A beautiful marriage, steady careers, a home filled with laughter and travel photographs. And yet behind the polished smiles and the polite small talk, there was a silence in their lives that no music could cover, no success could drown. It was the silence of a home without a child. For over a decade, David and Anna had tried. Doctors in London, specialists in New York, even experimental treatments in Germany. Every option, every dollar, every ounce of hope had been poured into one desperate prayer. Please let us be parents. But each time the answer seemed to come back in the same way, through tears, through failed procedures, through nights spent staring at the ceiling in wordless grief. Their friends moved on, cradling newborns in their arms, sharing baby showers and birthday parties. And though they smiled and celebrated, each event left David and Anna retreating to their car, holding each other in silence, broken by the ache no one could see. It was in the middle of that silence, when hope had worn so thin it was almost transparent, that they heard a name for the very first time. Not from a doctor, not from a medical journal, but from a Vietnamese coworker who spoke softly, almost shyly, as if sharing a secret too sacred for casual talk. Our Lady of Vang. A place halfway across the world, hidden in the heart of Vietnam. A place where, centuries ago, persecuted Catholics fled into the jungle to pray, and where the Blessed Mother appeared to them with words of comfort and healing. David and Anna were not Vietnamese. They had never even been to Asia, but something stirred in them at that name, something that felt like a whisper in the silence. For David and Anna, the first years of marriage had been filled with promise. They spoke about children the way most newlyweds do, with excitement, with laughter, with that innocent confidence that parenthood is simply the natural next step. But months turned into years, and years turned into a decade, and still, the nursery they once painted remained empty. It began innocently enough. Maybe next month, Anna would whisper, clinging to hope with each cycle. David would smile, reassure her, and make plans for the future as if nothing were wrong. But beneath his steady demeanor, he carried his own silent fears. After 2 years, the whispers turned to questions, and after 5, the questions turned into desperate prayers. Doctors became part of their lives in ways neither of them had expected. Fertility specialists, hormone injections, endless tests that stripped away their privacy and dignity, all for the same crushing result: negative. IVF cycles were their greatest hope, but also their deepest heartbreak. Each round required not only physical and emotional sacrifice, but also financial strain. They sold their second car. They canceled vacations. They drained savings that were once meant for their future child's college fund. And still, every procedure ended the same way. Anna curled up on the bathroom floor, tears staining her cheeks, whispering through sobs, "Why us?" David, kneeling beside her, unable to offer an answer, simply held her as though his embrace alone could shield her from the emptiness. The world outside didn't see their private pain. Friends celebrated pregnancies, family gatherings were filled with the sounds of babies crying and children playing. Relatives asked the well-meaning but crushing question, "When will it be your turn?" Each time, Anna forced a smile, excused herself early, and cried in the car. David would drive them home in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his heart heavy with helplessness. Church was both a comfort and a struggle. On Sundays, Anna knelt in prayer, staring at statues of Mary holding the infant Jesus.
She prayed until her lips trembled, begging for the same gift, the same joy. But when months passed without change, she wondered if heaven had turned its face away. David's faith, once steady, began to flicker. He prayed less, questioned more, and carried a quiet resentment that frightened even him.
The decision was made in a single evening, but the weight of it lingered for weeks. David and Anna had traveled before: Italy, Greece, the United States. But this was different. This was not a vacation. This was a pilgrimage, a journey stitched together by desperation and a fragile thread of hope. Booking the tickets felt almost unreal. As Anna clicked confirm, her hands trembled. David looked at her across the table, equal parts anxious and protective. "This is it then," he whispered. Anna nodded. "This is it." Their families didn't understand. "Vietnam? Why Vietnam?" her sister asked over the phone, confusion edging into concern. "Shouldn't you be saving your money for another round of IVF?" Anna only replied softly, "We've tried everything medicine can offer. Maybe it's time we try what heaven can." The flight was long, stretching over continents and oceans. Somewhere above the clouds, Anna pressed her forehead to the window, staring into the endless sky. She clutched a small rosary in her hand, each bead warmed by her nervous fingers. David dozed beside her, his hand resting lightly over hers even in sleep. For hours, the hum of the engines filled the silence, carrying them toward a country they had never seen, a miracle they could not yet imagine. When they landed in Vietnam, the air itself seemed different, thicker, warmer, alive with unfamiliar scents of incense, street food, and the earthy dampness of rain-soaked soil. Ho Chi Minh City buzzed with motorbikes, neon lights, and a chaotic symphony of horns. To David and Anna, it was overwhelming, yet strangely exhilarating. From there, they made the long journey north toward Quang Tri Province. The roads wound past rice paddies, where farmers in conical hats bent low over emerald fields. Children waved as their bus rattled by, their laughter chasing after them like blessings in the wind. The countryside was breathtaking. Mountains rising in the distance, rivers glinting like silver threads, and villages where life moved at a pace untouched by the rush of the modern world. But Anna's heart beat faster with every mile. She wasn't here for landscapes. She was here for La Vang.
When at last they arrived, the sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the shrine grounds. What struck them first was the quiet. After the chaos of the city and the endless hum of the bus, La Vang felt like stepping into another world. Birds sang from the trees, incense curled gently into the evening sky, and pilgrims knelt in silent prayer before the towering statue of Our Lady. The statue was unlike any Anna had ever seen. Mary stood tall, robed in flowing garments, her arms open in welcome. In her arms, she held the Christ child, his hand raised in blessing, and beneath her feet, lush green foliage, a reminder of the jungle where she had first appeared. Anna's breath caught. She felt something stir inside her, something she could not name. It was as if the air itself pressed gently against her heart. David placed a hand on her shoulder. Neither of them spoke. Words would have felt too small. They found a small guest house nearby, humble yet welcoming, run by a kind elderly couple who spoke little English but greeted them with warm smiles. That night, over a simple meal of rice and vegetables, Anna confessed her fears. What if nothing happens here? What if we go home just as empty? David reached across the table, squeezing her hand. then at least we'll know we tried everything. At least we'll know we brought our pain to the one place people say miracles happen. The next morning, they rose before dawn. The shrine was quiet, only a handful of pilgrims moving softly in prayer. The mist clung to the trees, and the air carried the faint, sweet smell of incense. Anna knelt on the stone floor, her rosary beads clicking faintly as she prayed. David stood behind her, his hands folded, his head bowed in uncharacteristic silence. As the sun rose, the shrine filled with life. Pilgrims arrived in groups, lighting candles, singing hymns, and carrying photos of loved ones to the altar. Anna watched them. Mothers holding babies, old men leaning on canes, young women with tears streaming down their cheeks. Every person there carried a story. Every person there carried a need. And for the first time, Anna felt she was not alone. Her pain, which had felt so isolating, was now joined to countless others. It was as if their prayers wove together, rising as one chorus before the mother who listened. That evening, she and David stayed long after most had left. The sky turned from gold to deep indigo, and the statue of Mary glowed under soft lights. Anna knelt again, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know if I'm worthy," she whispered, her voice breaking, "but please, please, if it is possible, give us a child. Not for me alone, but for us, for the family we've longed to be." David knelt beside her, his voice low, rough with emotion. "Mother, we don't know what else to do. We've tried everything. We're tired, we're broken, but we believe you can help us. If it's your will, please." The silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. The sound of crickets filled the air. A soft breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it the faint fragrance of flowers, though none were nearby. Anna felt it then, a warmth spreading through her chest, a peace so deep it silenced every doubt. David looked at her, startled. "Do you feel that?" he whispered. Anna nodded, unable to speak. They left the shrine that night, not with answers, but with something even more precious: peace. For the first time in years, they fell asleep without tears. For the first time, they believed that maybe, just maybe, heaven had heard. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of crickets and the occasional murmur of pilgrims finishing their prayers. Most of the basilica courtyard had emptied. Families who had knelt for hours now carried their sleepy children back to guest houses. A few candles still flickered stubbornly against the breeze. David and Anna lingered. Something in them resisted leaving. This night felt different, heavier, holier. They had prayed each day since arriving, but this evening both knew they had reached the very end of themselves. There was no more strength to bargain. No more energy to cling to techniques or treatments or plans. All they had left were open hands and broken hearts. Anna knelt before the statue of Our Lady of Vang, her knees pressed against the stone, her hands trembling. David knelt beside her, one hand on her shoulder. Anna began to whisper. Her words were halting, her voice breaking. "Mother Mary, we came from far away. We tried everything. We've given everything. But our arms are still empty. I don't know what else to do. If it is God's will, please, let us hold a child, even one, just once in our lives. Please." The words poured out of her like a flood she had held back for years. Every failed treatment, every sleepless night, every silent envy of mothers who carried babies while she carried only longing. She sobbed, her whole body shaking. David bowed his head,
He whispered, voice hoarse, "I don't know how to pray. I've been angry with God. I've felt forgotten. But tonight, I only ask, see us. Don't let us be invisible anymore."
The courtyard grew impossibly quiet. Even the insects seemed to hush. A breeze stirred, though the night was still. The candles around the statue flickered, yet did not go out. David felt the hairs on his arms rise. Anna lifted her head slightly, her tear-swollen eyes fixed on the statue. For a moment, the stone seemed alive. The face of Our Lady, usually serene and distant, softened. Her eyes seemed to meet Anna's, full of compassion so deep it unraveled every knot of despair in her chest. Anna gasped, covering her mouth. David saw it too. Not movement, not in the way humans move, but a presence that filled the air thick and undeniable. It wasn't only visual, it was something felt, a warmth flooding their bodies, a peace sinking into their bones. Anna heard it not with her ears, but in her heart. "My child, I see you. I have always seen you. Do not be afraid." Tears cascaded down her cheeks. She fell forward, pressing her forehead to the stone floor. David's own eyes blurred with tears he hadn't shed in years. He grabbed Anna's hand tightly. Suddenly, the single candle they had lit between them flared brighter, casting a golden glow around the base of the statue. The flame didn't burn wildly. It steadied, strong, like a small beacon. And then both of them felt it, a warmth at Anna's abdomen. Not pain, not discomfort, just a radiance, a tender fire that seemed to pulse with life. Anna gasped again, clutching her stomach. "David, did you feel?" Before she could finish, David placed his hand gently over hers. His eyes widened. "It's warm. Anna, it's alive." Neither could explain it. They didn't try. They simply knelt, overwhelmed as tears and awe spilled over them. The world around them faded. No tourists, no doctors, no statistics. Just two broken souls wrapped in the embrace of a mother who had heard them at last.
Minutes, or perhaps hours, passed. Time seemed suspended. When at last the warmth faded into a deep calm, Anna lifted her head. Her face glowed with a serenity David had never seen on her before. She whispered, "Even if nothing happens after this, I know now." She heard us. God heard us. David nodded, voice cracking. "For the first time in years, I believe that too." They rose slowly, their knees stiff, their hearts tender. They blew out their candle, but the light within them remained. Hand in hand, they walked back through the courtyard. Above them, the night sky shimmered with stars, and though neither spoke it aloud, both felt the same certainty pressing gently on their hearts. Something had changed. That night in their guest house, Anna woke suddenly. It was still dark. She sat up, pressing her hand once more to her abdomen. There it was again, that faint warmth, softer this time, but present. She didn't wake David. She simply smiled through fresh tears, whispering into the silence, "Thank you, Mother." And in the deepest part of her being, she felt a response. "Go in peace, my child. Your prayer has been heard." When the airplane lifted off from the humid air of central Vietnam, David and Anna pressed their foreheads against the window, watching the dark hills of Quang Tri recede beneath the clouds. Their time at La Vang felt like a dream, one stitched together by candlelight, whispers of prayer, and that unexplainable warmth that still lingered in Anna's body. They didn't speak much during the long flight. Both were afraid to disturb what had happened. If they gave it words too soon, would it vanish? Would it be revealed as only imagination, only wishful thinking? So they sat in silence, their hands clasped, letting the mystery rest between them like a secret flame. But deep inside, both of them knew something had changed. Life quickly folded back into its familiar rhythms once they returned home. Work emails flooded David's inbox. Anna's calendar filled again with medical appointments. Friends asked about their trip to Vietnam, expecting tourist photos of beaches and lantern-lit streets. But David and Anna gave only polite smiles. They couldn't bring themselves to share. Not yet. Still, subtle differences began to show. Anna woke earlier, filled with a quiet energy. She noticed food tasted richer, air felt fresher. The heaviness in her chest seemed to have lifted. For the first time in years, she laughed without forcing it. David, too, noticed. Each evening, he found his wife humming softly in the kitchen, as though carrying a song she didn't even realize was there. And at night, when they prayed together before bed, the silence between their words was no longer empty. It was full, alive, pregnant with unseen promise. Weeks later, Anna sat in the familiar, sterile room of her gynecologist's office. She'd come for a routine follow-up, nothing more. The doctor, a man who had walked with them through countless disappointments, flicked through her chart absent-mindedly. "So, Anna," he said with a professional half-smile, "how was your trip? Did you find what you were looking for?" Anna hesitated. Her heart raced. Should she mention Vang, the night of prayer? No. She only nodded politely. The doctor prepared to begin the usual exam, but before he even touched the ultrasound machine, Anna stopped him. "Doctor," she said quietly, her fingers trembling in her lap, I think something's different this time." The doctor chuckled softly, the way physicians often do when they've seen too much hope shattered to believe easily. "Well, let's have a look." He applied the gel, moved the probe across her abdomen, and stared at the screen. His expression froze. He blinked, adjusted the machine, leaned closer. Anna's breath caught. David, who had been standing near the wall, stepped forward, his knees weak. On the screen, unmistakable and clear, was the flicker of life. A tiny heartbeat pulsing like a fragile drum. The room was silent except for the rapid beeping of the monitor. The doctor finally spoke, his voice lower, softer than usual. This is impossible. Anna, you're pregnant." Anna covered her face with both hands. David's arms wrapped around her shoulders. They both wept, not with sorrow, but with the kind of joy that feels too large for a human body to hold.
Telling their families was an experience in itself. Anna's parents, who had stopped asking long ago out of fear of reopening wounds, broke down in tears over the phone. David's mother screamed with delight so loudly that the neighbors knocked on the wall. Friends who had pitied them now celebrated with them. Some were stunned into silence, unable to explain how a couple with years of failed treatments could suddenly conceive naturally. Others simply nodded and whispered, "It's a miracle." But David and Anna knew the truth. They carried it in their bones. The night at Vang was no dream. Pregnancy brought its own trials. Morning sickness, fatigue, doctor visits. But Anna bore them with a lightness she had never known. Each wave of nausea reminded her she carried life within her. Each ache was a promise fulfilled. David became fiercely protective, cooking meals, driving her everywhere, whispering prayers over her belly at night. He often placed his ear against her stomach, listening for movements, his face radiant with awe.
They bought a small wooden rosary from Vang and hung it above the crib. Every night, they prayed together, thanking the Blessed Mother for her intercession. There were moments of fear. What if they lost the baby? But every ultrasound showed steady growth, strong heartbeat. The doctors, though unable to explain the conception, admitted it was one of the healthiest pregnancies they had ever witnessed. 9 months later, under the pale lights of a hospital delivery room, Anna gave birth to a daughter. The baby's first cry pierced the air, raw and holy, like a trumpet announcing victory after a long battle. Anna, exhausted and trembling, held her child to her chest. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You are our miracle, our gift." David, unable to contain himself, fell to his knees beside the bed. He pressed his forehead to his daughter's tiny hand and sobbed. All the years of longing, the bitterness, the emptiness, they dissolved in that single moment. They named her Maria Hope, after the Virgin Mary and the virtue that had carried them through the valley of despair. 1 year later, with baby Maria in their arms, David and Anna returned to Vietnam. They walked once more to the holy sanctuary at Vang. The air smelled of incense and frangipani. Pilgrims lit candles, whispered prayers. When they knelt before the statue, Anna held her daughter high for a moment, then cradled her close. "Mother," she whispered through tears, "here is the child you promised." Other pilgrims, witnessing the scene, wept openly. A Vietnamese woman approached, touched the baby's cheek, and murmured, "Pepla, a miracle." David and Anna left a small plaque at the sanctuary, engraved with the words, "For every parent who waits in sorrow, do not lose hope. We came empty, and we left with arms full. Mother Mary at Vang hears your cries." Years passed. Maria grew into a bright, joyful child, her laughter filling their home. And though life remained imperfect with bills, arguments, ordinary struggles, there was a constant undercurrent of gratitude. David and Anna told their story often, not to boast, not to prove, but to witness, to remind others that even in the deepest valleys of despair, light can break through. They always ended their story with these words, "Miracles do not always look the same. Some come as healing, some as peace, some as strength to endure. For us, the miracle came as a child. But the greater miracle was this, that God saw us, heard us, and loved us when we thought we were forgotten." As they watched Maria chase butterflies in the garden one sunny afternoon, Anna leaned against David's shoulder. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "why us? Why did we receive this gift?" David smiled, his eyes never leaving their daughter. "Maybe because we finally stopped trying to earn it. Maybe because we finally opened our hands wide enough to receive." And in that moment, they both knew. The miracle was not only in the child they held, but in the transformation of their hearts. From despair to faith, from emptiness to fullness, from longing to gratitude. The story of Vang was no longer just a legend they had read in a book. It was their story now, etched forever in their family's life. A testimony that love, faith, and perseverance could bring light out of the darkest night.
David and Anna's story is more than a tale about becoming parents. It's a testimony that reminds us, even in our darkest waiting, heaven has not gone silent. Maybe you too are carrying a hidden longing, whether for a child, for healing, or for peace in a broken part of your life. Waiting can feel unbearable, like your prayers are unheard. But as David and Anna discovered at Vang, we are never truly unseen. Yes, their daughter was a miracle, but the deeper miracle came first. The peace that filled them the night they poured out their hearts before Our Lady. Even before their child arrived, they knew they were heard, they were loved, they were not forgotten. That same truth belongs to you. Miracles may not always look the way we expect. Sometimes they come as healing, sometimes as strength, sometimes as a new beginning we never imagined. But always, they come with the reminder, God is near. So if your heart is heavy today, take courage. Kneel in honesty, open your hands, and trust that heaven listens. Like David and Anna, you may one day look back and realize your story, too, was never beyond the reach of grace. And if you ever wonder, remember this simple truth. Miracles still happen.